Big family, one would presume that you've all been on holiday together, is that right?
No.
Definitely not the case. Have you been on holiday?
I've been on holiday, yeah.
Is it holiday or mini retirement that you went?
A big retirement. I was away for 4 weeks, but I woke up on early hours Sunday morning, and I'd had a FaceTime call from him. He was in Barbados, thought it was good.
I was a little bit drunk.
Yeah. Decided to FaceTime me early hours in the morning. Not good, eh? Unprofessional.
There's an exclusive. How excited are we about the new season?
I can't wait. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. I mean, last season was great. Not so much for Man City in terms of their season.
What was great about last season?
I just think
Liverpool won the league, United near the bottom.
Yeah, but it was a different story, wasn't it? It was a different story. I love going to the grounds, seeing the fans, and just the intensity in the studio. I just love it. I live for it now.
It's going to be busy. I've been hearing the
how many?
presentations, 215 million.
Yeah.
Does that mean more money?
Speak to
I think we're getting there, aren't we, in terms of obviously during lockdown, obviously a time that was really challenging, but we saw every game of football. I think, when you go to different parts of the world, obviously you can watch every game of football in the Premier League. It's getting to that point now whereby I think fans love football, they want to watch every single game. And it just feels right that particularly those games on a Sunday, some games when they get shifted through Europe to that 2 o'clock slot, feels sometimes like you really are missing out, and the fact that they're now going to be on is, I think, it's a big plus.
I think there's been sometimes a frustration, Jamie, when we've been on those big Sundays and we've got that 2 o'clock game, but not the one that everyone's actually talking about at that time because of something strange that's happened. That's not going to happen anymore.
No, and that's really good about it. And sometimes when we're at the Super Sunday, we're trying to watch one game, there's other games going on, we've got different TVs watching them all, haven't we? And sometimes when you pick the games, maybe another game at 2 o'clock because how the season's gone or a certain team's doing well, that's the game, probably the people at home want to watch, if you like. So yeah, we've got them all, looking forward to it.
And you're going to be even busier.
Yes.
Tell us about this new show.
Oh yes, on those.
New show.
Another one.
How many shows do you watch?
You can't complain about anyone being on TV. So I think on those 2 o'clocks when we've got all the games, we're going to put a little highlights package together. When the games are finished, maybe come on about 7-8 o'clock. And try and give a little bit of the Monday night football analysis.
So the idea of a bit more analysis onto each of those games that would otherwise.
I was just about to say that.
Okay. I wonder if you're getting there or not. It started already. Are we going to have a title race this season, Gary?
I hope so. I mean, obviously Liverpool last year, they won it really comfortably and they were dominant, and we love a title race. We obviously things going to the last day. The relegation obviously was sorted quite early as well, so I hope so. It's an interesting season. A lot of the top clubs have signed players that I think are stepping up in class. We don't quite know how those players are going to settle in. Liverpool obviously look like they've had a great transfer window, and if they get Isak, which it looks like he's agitating for a move, then it will make them massive favourites. So, but we hope that City, Arsenal, Chelsea, I think we'll push them closer than they did last year.
I think we will have a title race, and I think there's a lot of talk, obviously because Liverpool won the league comfortably, and then they're going to look like they're going to spend 300-400 million. I think the great thing about football is what we actually saw on Sunday with Liverpool. It didn't look right. They deservedly lost. They probably should have lost the game, I think, in normal time when I watched it. And it just tells you it's not just about spending lots of money and buying the best players. You've still got to sort of manage that team and make it work and have a nice balance to it. And I just thought, looking at that, I think there's a lot of work for Slot to do probably this week, going into the weekend's games.
Still your favourite, sir?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't get this narrative of Liverpool are going to run away with the league. They're going to obviously sign this player. The league's over. I think you look at history. It tells you that it's not just about having the best players. It's having the best team and sort of making that balance right. And at the weekend, it didn't quite look right.
Micah, how many clubs do you think you could make a case for here and now for the title?
Ooh, I think Chelsea looked strong after watching the Club World Cup. I think Man City, if Rodri would have been fit, I think it could have went to the wire, but it doesn't look like he's going to be fit until maybe October. I think that changes the narrative with them just because he's pivotal in what they do in terms of stopping them counter-attacks. But Reinders from Milan is a really good player. He can play number 6, can play number 8 as well. He scored a couple of goals in pre-season. So I'd look at that area of the pitch. They brought in Nico Gonzalez last season, so not really happened for him in that number 6 role. He's more of a number 8. Liverpool will be thereabouts. I think they would be my favourites this year. And Arsenal, bringing in Gyökeres makes them. We've been talking about Arsenal for a while now in terms of needing a striker. I still think they're a little bit short on the left-hand side. I think Martinelli's an impact player rather than a starter. If they could get someone in before the season, I think it'd be down 4 teams.
Are we doing predictions now, or are we saving that for the weekend?
Oh, man. Yeah.
What do you think?
Your predictions are terrible, aren't they?
I don't.
You're a good pundit, but your predictions are crap.
That's nice to know.
I mean, the predictions, it's almost like, I did say, I think Arsenal last year and the year before, they finished second. It's not as if they finished like 15th or anything.
Like United.
No, but you just go with Arsenal to be stubborn because you said that. Do you actually believe
I
that?
just think they've been quite consistent, and you think they're getting closer every single year. There's a little bit of science behind it. They have finished second. It's not as if they've been 4th, 5th and 6th. Your prediction last year was probably the worst in punditry history, wasn't it?
What was it?
Forest to go down. They were 3rd.
Where did you have Man United last season?
I had them, I think, 3rd or 4th. Most people had them in the top 4 or 5. I mean, he had them 5th, I think. So it wasn't as if anybody.
Look at those gets that.
It's like you predicted at the start.
What's leading up in this season?
I think United top 6 would be healthy. I think that my feeling is probably between 7th, 8th is where I'm looking at it right now. But I think they could, without Europe, they could get into the top 6 if they have a good run and those players settling up front, which I'm actually quite happy about the players they've signed up front. If you'd have said to me after that Europa League final, I didn't think they had the 200 million to spend.
Neither did Jim Ratcliffe.
I didn't think they had the 200 million. I didn't think they had the 200 million to spend. So the fact they've signed those 3 players, I like the profile of those players. Whether they settle in now, obviously, is the big question. If they get a goalkeeper, I think that they could get to top 6, but a lot of things would have to go on.
We are going to throw this conversation open to the floor as well. If anybody has a question, if you'd like to raise your hand, the roving mics will come and find you. Any questions on the season ahead?
Hi, Nick, ATV. Are you surprised that no one's taken a punt on Jamie Vardy yet, or do you not think he's got anything more to offer the Premier League?
Well, he's been linked with Sunderland, hasn't he?
Hey?
I've seen pictures. Yeah, you know about this, David, yeah.
Moving on.
Listen, that may be a deal that maybe happens, towards the end of the window because of his age. People are maybe looking at younger players in that role, and then maybe people towards the end of the window realise they can't get the one they want, and maybe looking at someone as maybe a squad player, bring him off the bench. Obviously, big name. He's proven in the Premier League, isn't he? So it's maybe a deal that will get done, I would imagine, later in the window.
We will see. I have a question in front.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Are you surprised at the growing number of signing from within the Premier League rather than going without? I mean, obviously United have gone for Šeško, but it seems to me more than ever now people are going for United's policy is proven Premier League. That's what Amorim has said, and others have done that. Do you think that's a good development, and do you think it actually strengthens the overall fabric of the Premier League?
Yeah, it's as if there's been a little bit of a pact, maybe internally in the last few years. A lot of money. I mean, I just remember going back 7 or 8 years. I think there was almost a sort of feeling in Europe that the Premier League was almost funding the entire game in Europe because of the fact that most of the money was going abroad. I think that there definitely will have been conversations, I suspect, from Premier League owners saying, look, we need to do business with each other here. We need to be smart and keep the money in the game. So there are more deals being done. That used to happen quite a lot in Italy all those years ago, and Spain. You used to think, how can that player go from that club to that club? Because I don't know whether the rivalry is different in this country, but the idea of players travelling from sort of Chelsea to Arsenal or Manchester United to, it would be a big news story if those things happen. Whereas now I think there seems to be an element of let's do deals with each other a lot more, and I think it is healthier.
Is that a question at the front? Thanks, Martin.
Oh, sorry. Thank
Well,
you.
here, yes.
Promoted teams getting relegated again the next season. We've seen spending quite a lot of money. I think it's over 300 million between the 3 promoted teams this summer, but it hasn't necessarily changed the picture. What do you think promoted teams need to do to make it more likely for them to stay up?
It's interesting really because in this studio last year we had Russell Martin after he'd lost his job at Southampton, and we were speaking to him Dave Wake about how he would have done it differently, and not so much about his style. He's got his way and that's fine, but he was talking about the physicality between the Championship and the Premier League, and he said he wished he'd gone for basically more physical players. And I thought it was interesting. I read an article a couple of weeks ago about Leeds, and they were talking about identifying you had to almost be over 6 foot for them to sign you this summer. I don't know if that's across the board with all the players that they've got, but I think that is a big part of it, no doubt. I think the problem they've got as well, I think clubs now are so well run in terms of sporting directors in who they're buying, a certain profile, certain age, and I think there's less mistakes in the transfer market than there maybe was in the past. And I think clubs are probably less emotional in terms of buying players. Fans get onto a club's back, they haven't bought, so they do this big panic buy. I don't think that happens as much. So you get, every season it felt in the past, you'd have a club who would just be a little bit mad, or they'd had loads of bad players and hadn't quite worked, and they'd get dragged into relegation zone. I don't think that happens as much now. So the teams coming up, I think, have got a major fight on the hands. So you need to be physically right, but getting that quality in, I think, is really tough.
It's a good point you mentioned. I think it's more to do with tactics and the way football is going. I think now, well, especially when I was coming through and you guys are coming through, defenders wouldn't play out from the back. You'd have to be really talented to play out from the back. And the teams that come up are all trying to play the same way, because that's the thing, what needs to happen to be successful in the Premier League. But I think teams need to be more pragmatic. I think
Forest, that sort of example?
Exactly that. And we talked about Forest last season. Yes, at times they weren't great to watch, but on the counter-attack, they was devastating. And I think teams now,
do you think Leeds, Burnley and Sunderland are going to come and try and be expansive this season?
Well, Leeds were the last time it was up. Maybe not Burnley. If you look at Scott Parker, the way he was playing at Burnley, they was very defensive. And maybe they have the best chance of staying in the Premier League. I just worry for them going forward a little bit. But I just think modern day football, everyone's trying to do the same things with less quality. So how can you adapt to the Premier League if there's teams already doing that with a better quality? It's always going to be difficult. So I think they have to adapt, but in their own way, and be a little bit more defensive and just not sexy football, essentially.
Okay. Another question? Yes, Mike.
Morning, gents. Gary, I noticed you said you thought they'd finish 6th or 7th. I just wondered what everybody's thoughts were on what would represent success for Manchester United this season.
I think they'll be looking at Champions League. I think that'll be the ambition, obviously. I think we've gone sort of past the point now where we say Manchester United have to win the league. I think that's unrealistic.
Does it give them a big advantage, Gary, not being involved in Europe?
I think it'll help. It has to help because there's basically more training time. It means there's less pressure on the players, less injuries. Means that the best players can play more often in the league and sort of not have those demands of a Thursday night game. But I think they've got to start the season well. They've got some tough fixtures early on. Look, those 3 signings, that if you'd said to me after that Tottenham game in the Europa League that Manchester United would have a forward line of those 3 that they've signed, I'd have said, I'd take that, I'd snap your hand off. 2 of them are proven Premier League players. Obviously they've got to step up a level. Sesko's young, he's got potential. Can they somehow settle those 3 players in to how he wants to play in that system, obviously, which is quite unique? Can they embed themselves at United? Can they get the probably 35-40 goals, which would be par for those 3 players? If they can get 40 goals, United's goal last season was terrible. They've got a good chance of getting into that top 6, but they've got to settle those 3 players, and we can't take that for granted anymore at United, I don't think. But I'm hopeful. There is a bit of risk being removed by the fact that Mbeumo, I think, he's quite solid, he's robust, he's played at Premier League level, I think, so is Cunha, so they know the Premier League, they've been to all the grounds, there's no shocks for them, it's just that expectation of United. And then obviously the boy up front, he's young, can he get off to a good start? That's important for him.
Does it feel like a big start, that first game against Arsenal?
I'm glad they've got that start.
Why?
I just think they need something
You
big.
just asked me that.
Yeah. He didn't ask you about Manchester United going bankrupt, but you answered.
Go on, Jamie.
I actually think when the fixtures come out, you sort of look at it and you think, Man United need to get off to a good start. They probably don't need. You think, oh, Arsenal are all, but it's a big game. But I also think for Arsenal, I think there's going to be that much pressure on Arsenal just because we're in year 5 now. Mikel Arteta maybe year 6, and it just feels like right from the start, everyone's eyes will be on them. And you can go to Old Trafford and lose on the first game. It can happen. You know, Arsenal went there last year. I think it was a 1-1. I think Declan Rice scored the goal. They were getting beat 1-0. And you'd expect United to be better now, all that sort of enthusiasm started the season. So I don't think it's a great game actually for Arsenal to kick off the season as well, because of the situation that they're in, where it just feels like all eyes will be on them from the very start.
I think that's pressure internally though from pundits, because like Gary said before, they have been challenging the last couple of years, Arsenal, haven't they, in terms
Yeah, but it's got to the stage where it's not enough now. The challenging's not seen as a good season.
So what about an FA Cup league? You're saying a Premier League now for Arteta?
I'm not saying it's Premier League or bust, that type of thing, because I actually think Mikel Arteta's done a brilliant job, and to be second, as Gary said, year after year, people sort of sneer and go, Arsenal finished second again, but there's a lot of big clubs in this league.
Exactly.
Sort of second every year is no mean feat. I think it would be good for them to get some sort of trophy, but I think they had a good result in the pre-season game, the last one. I think the one before then they lost at home, and there was a few murmurings in the crowd, so I reverently see the game, and I just thought it was interesting that it just feels even in the stadium, it's not just people outside, people in the stadium, Arsenal fans think this has to happen now.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes.
Jerry Cox from Haters TV. Quite a few new players to the league. Which ones excite you most? Which ones do you think are going to get the fans off their seats?
I think from a Liverpool point of view, Wirtz, even in pre-season, he just looks class. He just looks like a special footballer. There's glimpses, I think, in the Community Shield as well at the weekend. His link up with Salah already, and the other attacking players. I think he's one that, yes, I understand he's a Liverpool player, but I think it feels like one of those players when someone like that comes to the Premier League and you'd expect him to go to Bayern Munich. It feels like a star's come to the Premier League, and I think he's going to be a great addition. When you think of losing Kevin De Bruyne, I'm thinking, for me, one of the greatest players we ever had in the league. Hopefully this guy can almost take his mantle.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by the players that the top clubs have signed. So Gyökeres is going to do, Šeško, Delap at Chelsea, Wirtz obviously Liverpool. I think those players that sort of in big positions, which of those are going to step up and become real sort of, none of them at the moment you'd say are world class and deemed to be the best in the world, but which of those can become those players? And I think that's the intriguing thing about this season, is which of those are going to really sort of catch fire. There's obviously a lot of people looking at all 4 of those, and it'll depend upon how those 4 players do in those positions, about how well those clubs do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd probably say Wirtz is a standout. He's an outstanding player, not just recently. This is talking 5-6 years ago when he first came onto the scene. Reinders at Man City, excellent player, but also Shirky as well. He's a player who can impact the game. Can play at number 10, can play on the right, can play on the left. Wonderful left foot. He's both foot. He takes corners with his right foot and his left foot. So, alongside the guys that you've mentioned, I think we can have an exciting season.
Certainly feels like it, doesn't it? Gentlemen, thank you. A little taste of what is to come from Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher and Micah Richards.